So when I joined, the business was doing £1 million a year, and we were only a team of maybe 12, 13 people in total. 3.5 years, the business had scaled to 25 million, and we'd sold out to Mars.
That's a lot of growth in quite a short space of time, really. So a lot of
What's
groundwork.
important to you? What's not important to you? You can't outwork the day. There's only so many hours. There's only so much time.
They say business starts with spotting a gap, but for today's guest, it began with leftover pies and trading sandwiches for chips after school. From a joinery apprenticeship to running bakery shifts to helping scale one of the UK's fastest growing snack brands, his path has been anything but straightforward. Along the way, there have been high-stake risks, personal battles, and a leap of faith that meant walking away from corporate safety just as the world shuts down. He now helps emerging food and drink brands start up and make their mark. But the real story is how he's got here. Welcome to the podcast, Ash.
Thanks, Ian. Thanks for having me.
Let's jump back in. Let's rewind, because your story doesn't really start with startups. It starts back in Stoke with pies and some pretty creative sandwich trading. Can you explore that a little bit more for us?
It does. You're right. I was born in a place called Stoke-on-Trent, which, for anybody who doesn't know where the area is, I'm not great in geography myself, but it's in the North Midlands. It's sandwiched slap bang in between Birmingham and Manchester. So pretty sort of deprived area, and full of working class people, but real humble, real humble people who work really, really hard and back, from the old pottery sort of space. It was a good, interesting place to grow up, and it was a good
What
place
led
to
you to finding leftover pies? Where was that a sort of a hustler's mentality, or you just thought, you know what, that seems good, and I like chips on the way home from school?
a little bit of that. But I went to a standard comprehensive school, and to be really open, I wasn't a huge fan of a structured school curriculum. Let's say, I was into PE. I was a big football fan, and anything to do with physical education I was interested in. A little bit of English as well, which I kind of developed over time. But outside of that, didn't pay an awful lot of attention. Didn't really dial into this sort of standard school curriculum. I had a real appetite for earning money and trying to sort of pave my own way and kind of have my own autonomy. And, if you've got a little bit of cash, it kind of helps. So, and also it's sort of with little bits, like we used to go into school and they used to take sandwiches every sort of day of the week. And I had a friend that used to go, he'd play football at lunchtime and didn't want to sit and have school dinners. He was given, back in the days where you had a little bit of cash and you put on a school dinner card, and
Yeah.
you would top it up and then buy school dinners. And we used to do a little trade, and I'd take us £3 or £4, and I wouldn't put it on the card. I'd have no lunch, and what I'd do is I'd buy me and friends chips on the way home, and any way to sort of help other people and do all that kind of stuff was my thing. And
So that's probably some of your first early business lessons there, or really just trying to survive. But it sounds like your business lessons started there, spotting the gaps in the market a little bit.
never put by mistake. Yeah, just communicating with people and doing trades that work for everybody, kind of as time went on, sort of left school. I hadn't even left school, actually. I was in the final year of school. Again, really eager at the weekend. Days where there was no phones, there's no social media, there was no sitting and scrolling. So it was kind of go out and play and kick a ball around. And when you couldn't do that, there wasn't much else to do. So on a Saturday, I used to sell pies at the local football ground at Stoke City, and I was too young to work on the beer side of things, which was probably my preference choice. I was stuck selling pies, and what I used to do was we'd sell pies at half time, and after half time, everybody would go back and watch the second half of the game. And what we would do is any leftover pies you'd go and take to the incinerator, have to throw them away. I wouldn't do that. I'd hold them to the very end and stand outside the ground and sell them for a couple of quid extra time.
Oh, nice.
That was more money than I kind of had, work at the shift. So anything to kind of make a little bit of money, really, I suppose.
Yeah, nice. But then I suppose you're getting to learn people skills. You're getting to learn different paths, different ways. You can say, well, actually, that's a bit too much. If I knock it down by a little bit, I sell more volume. So I've got 50 pies to get rid of. Can I get rid of them quickly? So you've always got that sort of, I suppose, inquisitive business mind on. And then after you did that, you went in and did a joinery apprenticeship.
Did you? So I left
you
school.
Probably enjoyed that a lot, I'd imagine.
Well, again, my dad was an electrician by trade, and the mindset from sort of that age was disliked the education system. I had no appetite to go into further education. The university kind of wasn't really on the cards for me, and not a huge sort of interest area for me. But I was an electrician, sort of thought to myself, well, there's the opportunity to do side bits of work, a reasonable living, that kind of thing. Like, should maybe go into a trade, and that's as far as I thought about it. Didn't want to go into being an electrician. Didn't want to sort of work with my dad, if that makes sense. So I went into a joinery apprenticeship, and worked with a local company called Seddons, which was kind of just up the road from my house. And it was the start of things, I suppose, from a working platform.
And then you left that and went into a well-known supermarket. What was that transition like?
Back then you did a 3-year joinery apprenticeship, and then you come out your time and you went on to full money. So I started off in an apprenticeship on 85 quid a week, and that's super small money, working really, really hard, knew nothing, learned loads and loads and loads. But to be honest, like, working on roofs, working in the freezing cold, doing all these things that come with the trade, like, it's not for the faint-hearted. And although I didn't mind that too much, I sort of noticed quite quickly 3 or 4 years in that it wasn't something I got huge appetite for. But at the time, sort of equally still wanted to earn some good money, and wanted to had a car that I'd saved up for and saved every penny I'd required over 3 years for, and insurance was really high and stuff. So I got a little side job at Tesco just to bump up my money, and then took a leap of faith 4 years into my joinery sort of experience, and made the switch over into a full-time role at Tesco.
And what was that? Because obviously they set you up quite well. From my experience in there's a lot of growth opportunity, and already in your early days, you've shown you like that growth potential. You like to learn something, not necessarily in the academic world, but in the school of life, which is quite nice. Were there sort of moments where you were able to sort of progress into sort of management roles or duty roles or anything like that, where you could learn more skills?
Yeah, well, things changed quite quickly for me. I think what set me out from the rest, because at this stage I was maybe 21. So the people my age that were working at Tesco were at uni. These guys have got other things that they were working on from a broader setting. I'd obviously come out to full-time sort of the joinery space, and I actually applied some of that work ethic on site into that retail setting, and was noticed quite quickly. And I was fast tracked into a management position running a scratch bakery. And for anyone who doesn't know what a scratch bakery is, it's a 24/7 bakery operation, 13 direct reports on a placement, and I'm 22. And the direct reports are all sort of similar age to my parents, and I'm this like spotty 21-year-old, and tasked with the role of managing these people and trying to get the best out of them, and effectively sort of making money for the bakery, which was huge.
Yeah, massive learning curve. But then, I dare I say, if you were handling and negotiating deals in the playground, then at the end of a football game when the crowd have either won or lost, so it's either a happy pie or a sad pie, depending which team's won or lost. So you've actually can draw on quite a lot of those things. And then as you sort of developed through your Tesco career, you noticed some sort of brand reps in the aisles. Was that like a light bulb moment that sort of thought, I can go and learn a little bit more there? That's where some more intrigue lies, because you seem like you've got a thirst for learning and knowledge.
The way it would work at Tesco is your role was to look after sort of your own department, and then what you would do is you would do a duty management shift, and effectively you would be in charge of the store certain periods of the week. And certain periods of the week you would have reps that were coming in from different brands, so large corporate brands, primarily the likes of Ferrero, Vimto, Cadbury's, those kind of brands, and they would send in reps, and they would try and upsell you and get you to order more of their product, win discretionary space, that kind of thing. So I was always dealing with those kind of people, and at the time I was doing, pretty well managing people, which was great, and I enjoyed it. But the fact I was doing crazy shifts. Life balance wasn't ideal. Couldn't really go out with my friends because of the work I was doing and all that kind of thing, and the timings. The conversations I was having with them seemed quite translatable in terms of the skill set. So it seemed quite sensible to sort of explore it a little bit more and look into. Effectively, if I was to get a job in that space, I would be selling to people doing what I'm currently doing, which, seemed like something I was hopefully capable of doing, which is, kind of what I moved into next, maybe after 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, and then you switched into going into brand reps. And what was that again, your transition into? You went into a couple of different rep brands? Were they different that you learnt along the way? 'Cause I think you said Ferrero you were in with one. What was
Yeah.
your time like in there? And did you manage to pick up some skills from your Tesco time that you can translate into that and go, right, these guys, they because you understand that playing zone from where you've come, it's easier to communicate with them because you're on the same language with them?
Absolutely, yeah. There's a language thing and understanding that I was selling to effectively people that were just like they were in roles that I was in at Tesco. So the sell was pretty easy because I understood what their KPIs would be and understand what their wants out of the conversation would kind of be. It was more about understanding brands and understanding a little bit around structure, about sort of phrasing conversations, then execution. So yeah, I started off at Ferrero. Again, huge company, so you get a really, really great grounding and some real good training that comes along with that. I was there for about 2.5 years and one of their leading sales reps. At the time, you were a team of 100 reps nationally back in the days that you could go and really agree discretional space to some of these supermarkets and really, really make a difference to their sales revenue on a regional basis. But yeah, really, really useful and helped me very much to sort of communicate better and communicate clearly and make sure that I could almost this rawness that I developed around speaking with people, selling to people, managing people, and all this kind of thing. It quite quickly taught me that this was sort of the area that I'd got tons of energy for. And it was more about fine tuning it and making sure that I could, yeah, communicate with people, I suppose, in more of a senior way. And that was kind of the evolution of that, I suppose.
And then you went on to Vita Coco.
Yeah, a company called Vita Coco, so it's an American coconut water brand. It launched into the UK. Yeah, their head office was down in Farringdon in London. This time, I'm in I'm from a super working class area of Stoke-on-Trent. I think I've been on a train maybe once or twice in my life. So going down to just the interview was like a real sort of pressure moment. And yeah, it wasn't great fun. I didn't really like coconuts either. So it was, but it was one of those opportunities that I couldn't turn down. And again, put me around people from very different sort of different backgrounds, different education background. It introduced me to some different people and different environments that helped to shape me almost and give me lessons and an experience that I'd never witnessed, and had from the area that I brought in.
Imagine with your time there, obviously, if you've got the Ferreros, that's more of a confectionery side of things. Then this is more into, I suppose, would you call it like the health drink space or the
Health,
healthy brands, if that's
so they're
something.
like a
But then,
health proposition broadly. So back then there was, your innocent drinks and that kind of thing. And coconut like water wasn't really a thing. Maybe it was in the south and sort of, sort of in the capital, but broadly, like outside of London, it wasn't well recognised. But there was huge demand for healthy alternatives, and it was a growing space. So, yeah, it kind of timed quite well that I joined the business, and yeah, it was easy to make the mark because there was such demand for the product.
again, I suppose in the health boom, then, if that was, you then learn the fast pace, you learn the momentum that it takes. And what
Absolutely.
made you go from there into the Kind snacks?
Well, I was headhunted. I was headhunted by Kind again. Kind are another US business. They'd obviously launched into the UK with a Tesco listing and started to develop their sales team. And they were looking for somebody who got people management experience, some on the ground experience in terms of going into retailers, going into independent wholesalers, cash and carries, all of these sort of broader, and yeah, they were looking for somebody, and I was working for another American brand. So yeah, the business and the values were very translatable. So they'd sort of picked me up and yeah, offered me a really, really good opportunity, and I took it with both hands, and it gave me a great sort of again a really different learning because I was going in at Vita Coco where the business in the UK was pretty established. It was a matter of sort of really making the area that I was managing at the time tick and do better. This role was more on a national scale and very much sort of allowed me to really help to like fine tune and sort of help shape their UK strategic plan. And so yeah, like really helped me from a commercial angle and a strategic planning perspective.
Did you see quite a lot of growth with that as well in terms of putting those strategies into place? Where if it's a fairly fresh company into the UK, I'm obviously imagine the revenue is quite low, but with your help with the strategic elements on a national basis, did you see that grow quite quickly? Were there sort of moments that you thought, right, this is flying, or a couple of moments where you think, cool, actually this might collapse?
Yeah, although we were joining the UK market with a fairly premium proposition, and you're trying to sell, a whole and natural sort of nut bar in a space where, the likes of Mars, Cadbury's have dominated that particular space. The understanding from a retailer perspective took a little bit of a while to nail down, and to kind of get it round to consumers that actually, you know, if it's real and it's whole and it's natural, the cost of that product becomes more to make, and effectively, like, the cost of purchase becomes a little bit more as well. So it's something that we're really familiar of now, and this the world has changed a lot from 10, 12 years ago. But yeah, very much so. When I joined, the business was doing £1 million a year, and we were only a team of maybe 12, 13 people in total. 3.5 years, the business had scaled to 25 million, and we'd sold out to Mars. So really good, really, really great sort of business, and yeah, super successful one, I suppose.
That's a lot of growth in quite a short space of time, really. So a lot of groundwork's coming off for, I say, a bit of a slow start in terms of not the resources behind you. It's not like a plug and play. You've almost got to create the field in which you've got to nurture those relationships and go.
Sure, relationship is strategy, and it's time management, and broadly, it's almost like, a football analogy I use quite a lot. It's trying to, really low budgets, and it's trying to get a lot out of the team, and that's kind of what it was. And we were a really, really close unit, and worked with some really switched on people that taught me an awful lot. Yeah, thankful of the time and the experience.
Of course, your career is obviously flying by this point, but then obviously we always have a life behind the career, and sometimes your life has had a few challenges in it as well. Obviously, you had a newborn at the
Yeah,
time when the world locked down and you walked away from corporate safety. COVID hit, and then you've taken a leap of faith and you've moved on.
yeah,
Can you tell us a little
absolutely.
bit about that transition? Was it sort of perfect timing, or was it inspired by having the newborn coming in?
Yeah, well, we at the time we'd sort of the business had scaled, doing really, really well. And then we went through a Mars acquisition, and the team was effectively transitioned over to be part of the incorporated Mars business. So I'd moved from a fast-paced startup mentality to a corporate setting, which for most people would be really, really great, because, you've got a young family sort of coming through. My partner Paige was pregnant at the time, and we were having our little boy. And, but most people will be thinking, okay, I'm part of a corporate now, and actually, like, with a good pension and really good salary and a lot of safety. And actually, I felt the complete opposite. I really, really missed that startup, that world I've been conditioned by, where it was a little bit of hustle, a little bit of just a lot of fast pace, which I suppose, when I think back now, whether it was selling pies at Stoke, whether it was trading dinner cards, whether it was all these things, it was all in the environment of risk and opportunity and reward and getting what you want if you take the gamble and all that kind of thing. Yeah, I was seeking sort of very much deep in my own thoughts at the time. We were stuck into COVID as well. We've been isolated at home for a long period of time, suffered a little bit of like family loss and a few things going on, birthed my little boy, and was very much sort of looking at what I wanted out of the next 10 years, 5 years of my life, and whether I wanted a continuous corporate sort of experience, which, don't get me wrong, was fantastic opportunity, by the way, but it wasn't something that was getting me out of bed in the morning, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I kind of I took the plunge a little bit, and yeah, went out on my own, and started to work with it. Actually, funny how relationships circle back. One of my old colleagues who gave me my first role at Vita Coco, he was actually consulting and was on his own, and I actually started to work from him in more of a sole trader capacity, if you like.
Using your skills. And that's where not only you had a newborn, but you also had a new brand, which is your AC brand.
Absolutely, yeah. I worked with Paul for 12 months and sort of very much harnessed my self-employment skills through Paul, and I went solo fully maybe a year later on, and yeah, we started AC Brands, and effectively sort of the ambition was to package up these 10 or 12 years worth of experience, and really sort of apply it and give it to small challenger brands that are crying out for the experience and support in the early days.
Yeah.
500, 1,000 distribution points are always the hardest to gain and gather. So yeah, that's kind of where the energies come from, I suppose, to
And you got that buzz. I always liken it to, if you come back to the big corporates, it's like an oil tanker. And if an oil tanker wants to stop, it puts its thrusters in reverse, and it takes them like 3 miles for it to stop. So even if it has to change course, it might be only 2 or 3 degrees off course, but it might then have to travel 100 miles, which is a long way off.
So
Whereas
true.
small brands, the startup brands, I think are more like a speedboat, are able to nip in and out, or maybe a footballer's gin palace or something like that, that you can
Yeah.
quickly and turn, but you've got to be able to get some momentum. Once you get it up to speed, it's okay. But then you almost then need somebody to come along and go, just change it here, or don't use all your fuel here. We need to improve this. We'll upgrade your engines, we'll upgrade this, and you slowly grow up those sort of things. What do you think in your last 12 years of experience of startups and things, do you think some of the UK food and drink startups sort of their mistakes they make, or the misunderstandings that they might have from those early days?
I think it's a really tough setting at the moment, and there's an awful lot of really, really good brands, and they're doing some real purposeful things, and they've got some great propositions. A lot of like the USP of AC brands, I suppose, is we tend to like really do well with a lot of the better for you, healthy alternative brands, whether it's drinks, snacks. There's a couple of brands behind me here, and a lot of them are, you kind of get like one of two flavors. You either get a founder that maybe has not worked in the industry before, and is coming into it for the first time, and actually maybe puts their too much trust into a starting team, if that makes sense. And sometimes the obvious route, like it would be for most businesses, right, is let's go and get somebody who's worked for a much larger business, bring them in, and they're going to really help shape and shift things. The corporate setting, as you've just alluded to with your tanker sort of analogy, like it's a very, very different environment. And with a lot of startups, it's about pace and making it easy for buyers, making it easy for retailers, activating well, doing the end to end. And what you need is, you kind of need hunters and gatherers a little bit. You need people who can go and hunt and pull in your business, land that sort of stuff, and execute well and pull it through from an end to end, which it's hard to find those people, and pretty expensive as well, if you want the honest truth, to get those kind of people who've got the experience. And actually, I never really had a huge ambition to go into, large senior roles, such as the sales director or even founding a business myself. The energy was from helping others. So yeah, I think one of the big areas and the big watch outs for startups are hiring well, like really, really, be hiring all the time would always be my advice. Like always look for the best talent that you could get, and get them when they're on the incline, real hard, hungry people who are, looking to kind of make their mark and they really got on a journey with you.
I'd imagine then it must be about failing fast to be able to learn, because you could say spend, I don't know, 12 months on a project, talking it to death, have all the big, say, senior corporate people around the table. It sounds great, it sounds great, it sounds great, but nobody's actually doing the thing, like say hunt and gatherers. It's imagining, I don't know, looking at a map and going, yeah, we could go there, that looks really good. We could go there, let's think about it, rather than actually, I'll just go out and see what it's like and come back and report back. And like you say, you probably want the hungry people to understand it. And is there then a difference with, say, the big corporates are perhaps profit first, and then some of the smaller businesses might be more purpose-led businesses? Is there much of a difference between those two, would you say? Or there's a sweet spot between profit first and purpose-led businesses?
Yeah, I think they have to be joined together, right? Without, if you're not doing both, you're not gonna succeed. The difference is with the corporate is they've done it over a period of time, and effectively they've got that market share and they've got that credibility in the bank, I think. With startups, you're very much battling for space, and in a lot of the categories that I mix in, they are heavily bloated. There's an awful lot of subcategories that form part of a drinks bay or a snacking bay, and it's really, really hard for buyers to really get clear on why a particular proposition is more important than another one. And what you need is that blend between data, between activation, between purpose and value, and noise a little bit as well. We live in a world now where sometimes if you shout the loudest, you are rewarded for it, and you have to do it in the right way. But if you don't shout at all, you'll never get there. So it is a balance. It is a balance, and it's about fine tuning and being really, really strategic. But as you say, not standing still and mulling over things for too long, because you can kind of you can not get off the starting line. You can just stand still for too long.
Which I suppose, if you come back to your pie analogy, if you don't sell them while they're hot, people might not be interested in them.
Absolutely.
So you got to
Absolutely.
get there.
Always
And
hungry when they've got a few beers at the game.
Yeah, exactly. And then if we just do a little bit of reflection, by the sounds of it, if we go back to your very early days at school, you liked helping people there, thinking, right, how can I help people make the deal? And you make a little bit in the middle. You then go into your Tesco's days, you make in the middle of trying to make the, obviously your leadership team, but also relate that into there. And now you've gone into the corporate world, back into your AC brands. You're helping businesses again with your experience. What do you think you can take or people can take from your story when you go in as AC brands, do you think?
Well, I think that one of the most underrated things in life is that people think that they have to be great to be successful. And you do to a point, but like that phrase, your network's your net worth, is, I think it's really relevant too. I think it's really important to get around good people. It's really important to, whether you've got to keep your circle pretty tight, right? If not, you kind of get involved in loads of other things and sort of too many people and never actually sort of get anywhere yourself. But it's really important to identify the good people in your life, whether it's personally or professionally, and invest behind those people, whether that's time, whether that's in support, whether that's, in the bad times. It's really important to help other people, because a lot of the time, if you do that for the right people, those times that you really need the leg up, or there's an opportunity, or you're out of work, or you're going for a change, or you're looking for somebody to take a bit of a gamble or a big bet on you, they tend to come up trumps.
Yeah, fine. And it sounds like now, obviously, you're in the thick of it, building your brand up and helping other brands or the next wave of startups. If we can just pull back from the camera a little bit and let's sort of think about, obviously, some of the challenges that you might have had. I'd imagine when you were repping, you were probably on the road a hell of a lot. And do you
Yeah.
think you've become perhaps a coffee connoisseur, perhaps, or obsessed with coffee shops when you're thinking of, have you found that the reality of owning your own brand, you're working a lot on the road and found yourself working from all these sort of obsessive coffee shops, perhaps?
Yeah, when you go out and you start by sort of pounding the pavements, it's quite easy to be in the office and be a bit disconnected from the reality of life, the reality of the world. But in the industry that I operate in, you're dealing a lot with independent sort of business owners, people who might have a local, coffee shop or local convenience store, whatever, and it's actually, it's part of their families, their heritage. It's super important to them, all the way up to somebody that's maybe got 100, 200, 300, and you're dealing with middle management and anything in between. So you're dealing with loads of different types of people, which is rewarding, challenging. You get an awful lot of sort of learnings from that. But yeah, like there's something quite inspiring about watching somebody start something for themselves. And I, I am, you talk about coffee. I've become a little bit of a coffee snob over my time. I did a little bit of a gig for an own little brand called Minor Figures, based in Walthamstow in London, and yeah, they've kind of ruined me a little bit. And now I'll only go into independent sort of coffee shops who have strong origin coffee and yeah, really stand behind, no more corporates. I don't go into Costa and Starbucks no more. I've kind of sacked that off whenever possible. But yeah, there's just a lot of respect that you have for independent people. And you know what they need? They need people's cash, and they need, and actually they will get you the quality product, and they will give you the better service. And, people should try it, because you get a lot more out of working, dining in a place where there's one person that owns it and it's everything to them, over somebody that, over a corporate that effectively it's one of many.
And how important then is your network and the circle that you've been in getting you to where you are today and appreciating everything that you've got?
It's everything. I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing without sort of the really good people that have, helped me through tough times personally. I'm talking about one of my marketing directors. Sort of, I was going through a real tough time mentally, sort of not long after my little boy was born. And if it wasn't for him intervening, I'd have never gone and got some counselling, some support that I got at the time. And this isn't sort of a family member that did this. This is a marketing director that effectively, we've become really good friends ever since. And I regularly tell him how much I appreciate him doing that, because that was a little bit of a fork in the moment piece for me, and I could have gone a different way. So investing in those people, and really sort of taking the time to ask people questions, and small things like, you can be in the business setting, but costs nothing to ask people how they are, and really get to know people, because you'd be surprised, like, to ask somebody a question and you shut up and let them talk. Not too good at, but they will tell you a lot. You'll learn a lot about them, and quite quickly they'll realize that you actually care about them, and not just the reason why you're going to see them.
And I suppose then with your coming back to that marketing director, you would have a gut feeling, or he had a gut feeling about you, and there must have been something that he thought, hang on, you're not right. You're not the normal sparkling ash that there might be. How are you? Rather than, oh, I just ignore it, is actually having, I suppose, that being aware perhaps of your own strengths, but observing what others may not be able to see. And do you feel that you, from that sort of, I suppose, uncertain times or difficult times, do you think some of your strengths now, you've got to understand yourself better, which has allowed you to progress more as a person, as a father, as a partner, and a business person?
Very much so. I think, we're all concept of our upbringing, a concept of our surrounding, and all of that's, it shapes who we are as individuals. I think, you know, I had a bout of counselling, and it taught me to kind of look from outside of myself and look down at myself from a bird's eye view. Sounds quite strange, right? But it's allowed me to sort of have a little bit of a think about, like, who are you, and like where are your strengths, where are your weaknesses, where are the blind spots in you and your personality, and sort of, how do you kind of be aware of them? You can't change who you are, I don't believe, but I think you can be aware of the pros and the cons of your own makeup, and yeah, like, really sort of try and, yeah, be the best that you can be. And I also think kids bring that out of you much faster as well. I think when they come along, you ask yourself questions that maybe you've never had to ask yourself before. What kind of parent do I want to be? What kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? Like, how do I set these and install these sort of these values and these, how do we wake up every morning? My little boy has to see me brush my teeth every day. If not, he won't brush his teeth, and you'll have an argument over teeth brushing in the morning, and you have to set the standard, and it's hard work. It's hard work, but it's important, I think, and I think good
I
people lead
think
you.
with being a parent is the consistency. Is
Sure.
in those early days, you are the sole carer, life giver to that little person. I think as parents, it's about installing them to become a good individual person rather than just somebody to follow. But I think consistency, like you say, what your little boy wants to watch you clean your teeth, that's a consistent habit. You install in that, right? That's what we do together. Is some time that you can have together, have a chat, see how he is. He could have an issue like your marketing guy picked up on you, and you're there to able to see it. Whereas if you're too busy rushing, thinking, oh, come on, hurry up, you would have missed that moment and not had that opportunity to have a chat as he gets older, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and I think motivate. Everybody gets motivation, right? And motivation goes up and it goes down. Some days you're motivated, some days you're not. But I think discipline's really important. And, you know, you have to set those standards as a parent or as a leader in a business or a leader of your own business, right? Or what you're doing, you have that discipline, and you've got to turn up and set a standard and deliver that standard as often as you possibly can. That doesn't mean there's not down days, but more often than not. And I think that whether it's your little boy or it's your colleagues or it's your line manager or whatever, if they see that coming from you consistently, there's only good things happen if you can do that.
And changing the tone slightly, what sort of funny things or perhaps interesting things that you've seen along your journey that makes brands feel real? We always see sort of the glossy highlight reel. What were some of the sort of humorous moments, perhaps behind the scenes, that you're allowed to share without getting people in trouble?
With particularly with those two London-based businesses that I mentioned, Vaz Coco and more kind really, but we uh we were a young, hungry team, as we said, and we sort of we would work really, really hard and put real sort of measures on one another, and real pressure on each other to succeed, and we've done a really good job at doing that. And when we got together and we used to have like quarterly socials, we would let our hair down. Let's say we would let our hair down, and there was one story I could tell you where I used to travel down on the train. I get into London for about lunchtime, um, and I go straight to the office, and I take my case and I take my bag and whatever, and we'd have a hotel pre-booked, and what we'd end up doing is we'd do a work social in the afternoon, and we'd have a couple of drinks, let's say, and maybe a couple too many drinks, and there's times where I've gone back to what I thought was my hotel, knocked on what I thought was my own hotel door, and been greeted by somebody who's in who's in the hotel that they're meant to be in, and room that they're meant to be in, and I'm not, and had some really embarrassing moments, maybe a little bit too merry, and yeah, some funny times, some funny stories, but based out of, yeah, working hard and playing hard, I suppose.
And if you could go back to the 16-year-old yourself, what sort of wisdom or warning might you want to give to yourself back then?
I think you put too much pressure on yourself, maybe one. I think critically think. I think like the word critically think, like it's not something I really understood until maybe the last 2 or 3 or 4 years. But it's kind of really understand sort of what you, what's important to you, what's not important to you. You can't outwork the day. There's only so many hours. There's only so much time. And actually, like, there's always going to be a big long to-do list. And you have to decide whether you want it to go side by side and try and do everything, or you want to stick them in a line and actually, like, really, really be critical about what you're going to work on and who you're going to, invest the time in and that kind of thing. So, yeah, I'll probably say those two things, like, you're a critical thinker and yeah, don't put too much pressure on yourself.
Nice. And it's one of the things that keeps coming up time and time again is time. And there's that phrase of, I don't have enough time. And you think, well, how do people who are really successful, whatever success may be for them, whether it's consistently going to the gym when they've only had a few hours sleep, with their children waking them up in the night, or businesses constantly gathering new leads and businesses. And it's that very question where you said, do you expand yourself sideways, or do you go deep, or you go, where is my priority?
Yeah,
And then it's
absolutely.
clearly defining your boundaries. Whereas, what's it? They say the grass is always greener the other side.
Mm,
And I can't remember where I saw it or heard it, but they said you just don't, the grass may look greener the other side. You just don't know how much mess is underneath the green to grow the green. And I thought,
absolutely.
yeah, that's really good. If you know what you want or what your boundaries are, it's a lot easier then to know if other people are sneaking stuff into your boundaries that you don't want to have.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's back to that sort of like border council, I call them, that kind of like critical small circle of people that you confide maybe, some things, and that could be a work colleague, could be a parent, could be a brother or sister or friend, whoever. And sometimes you aren't quite sure, maybe, in certain settings, whether it's, a certain employer putting too much onto you, or a certain family member, or maybe you're putting too much pressure onto yourself. But those people are tight, and actually, like, invest your time in people who they will tell you openly. They'll tell you honestly. They'll tell you things sometimes that they know that you probably won't react well to, because they want what's best for you. It's really easy, isn't it, to kind of go, yeah, you're great. Don't worry, you're great. But probably not helpful when you're struggling. You probably
Yeah.
someone's go, oh, well, you're doing a bit too much of this, or a bit too much of this, or not enough of this in some cases. So, yeah, getting good people around you, and people who are really transparent and honest. Like, sometimes you can be so close to the grain, it's hard to step back and look at things from a bird's eye view. I mentioned it around learning a bit about myself. You're that eager to do well. You kind of start to miss tricks, and you're actually not happy doing it sometimes, which it's important to kind of get that advice sometimes, or self-reflect if you can do that.
Yeah, and so I think self-reflection is a massive thing, becoming more and more popular in conversations with, say, mindfulness and mental health and stuff like that, and of actually finding whatever is a balance, whatever a balance may be for people. But what would you say is next for AC Brands, the next sort of chapter for you guys? Are you looking to grow? Have you got some exciting projects on that you're allowed to share with, perhaps?
I'm working with some really, really good brands at the minute, and yeah, we're kind of we're considering, like, we're looking to grow for sure. We've had a really, really successful 2 or 3 years. We've become a six-figure business, and it's going really well, and we're delivering some really good results for our brand partners. The question now is sort of whether this is something that can scale, whether this is it's the balance of everything, and delivering the service, but equally sort of making sure that we're fine tuning the proposition and really adding value. Yeah, like, the plan is to stabilize, and the plan, I've been really, really quickly in a short space of time. The plan is to stabilize. The plan is to is to look at maybe openly at different ways that we can. I've started to do some project pieces that are outside of some of the new business sort of retained work, which has kind of been my model, and I'm helping sort of some of the super early stage brands that maybe haven't quite got the concept right yet to help them with a strategic plan. So that's something I'm really enjoying being involved with at the minute. And maybe we could do a little bit more of that, and hopefully if I can get to a position where we can reinvest some of maybe net profit that we make at the end of the year and do some of that for maybe no charge. Like, it'd be great to get to a place where we could maybe implement a little bit of purpose along with sort of profit and get that kind of tangible and, yeah, get that right. That's kind of the hope anyway.
Which I suppose then comes back to that profit first and also purpose-led business that you said, or the big corporate chains of coffee shops, or the independent ones, where the independent ones might go, I want to open up 2 or 3 more shops. But then they have the question of consistency, deliverability, personalness, all of those things that you get from going to that one independent coffee shop. But how do they replicate it without building a team and spending all that time in there?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the big phase from growth, right, is, and the big change is almost like you've got one. For myself, I've just got the one business that I'm an integral part of. The success of the business is kind of down to me and my performance. When you start to multiply and grow, actually the success of your business is down to other people then. So it changes from your own, performance and measuring yourself to actually starting to measure and develop hearts and minds and get other people on board and sort of bring, all of that in. So the strategy and the clarity is always important. And yeah, like hiring good people and getting really open, honest people around the table is sort of, I think, something that everybody says is important, but sometimes you can kind of out of haste and rush. You can skip past that and kind of take a bit of a punt and almost play the old game of snakes and ladders, where you go up a couple of sort of levels and then end up sliding back down due to haste and pace, which I've done a few times.
But then again, I suppose it's very easy to say all these lovely words to say, and I want somebody with these qualities, with this, with this, with this. But if we don't have the self-reflection or the critical thinking, these just almost become marketing buzzwords, don't they, really? And you're thinking, well, who do I need? I need somebody that's fun. I need somebody that's engaging. Right, okay, but how does that look for this brand? Right, their brand have got upbeat, dry sense of humour, so we need somebody with that. It's that line coming down rather than just spreading it out when you're hiring, because it's all very well saying I want a good hire. I don't think there's many brands that want to hire a bad hire, perhaps, but it's then again, knowing your boundaries. Here's my green playing field. Who would I want in it to help leverage the growth, isn't it, really?
Yeah. And I think this is why a lot of brands are starting to be a little bit more open-minded to fractional workers, such as my core proposition. Like, they wanted to take the time and bring in really, really good people. And it takes time to find really, really good people, right? There's due diligence that's got to go into it, and you kind of got to understand what you want before you know what to bring in. So I think a lot of brands are starting to bring in and be open to fractional workers to come in and almost do a bit of a caretaker role to help them on a journey, or at least sort of to fill some of these short-term objectives for them, just while they bring in that future talent that can really, really sort of hockey stick their business and help them longer terms. Yeah, it's super important.
Brilliant. So from pies and chips and Stoke to helping brands build across the UK, Ash, it's been an absolute pleasure hearing your journey today. And if people are inspired by your journey or enthusiasm for startup brands, how can they get in contact with you and connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. You can find AC Brands. We've got a webpage on there. You can also find me under my name, Ashley Cope. You can find us on Instagram as well under AC Brands. The page is growing slowly, but yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. Probably need to spend a little bit more time on my own business to do a lot on everyone else's. Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. You can find me on LinkedIn, Twitter as well. But primarily, I do a lot of my interaction via LinkedIn.
Brilliant. Fantastic. We'll make sure those are in the show notes. But Ash, once again, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian.
Be a part of 360 Life Stories. Subscribe and join our emailing list to get exclusive insights, episode highlights, and behind-the-scenes stories straight to your inbox. It's the best way to stay inspired between episodes and never miss the next great conversation.